Thank you very much indeed, and it's a great pleasure to be able to be here to share this occasion, so thank you for the invitation. So I wanted to start using the idea of storytelling in social work and journalism, because in so many ways there are aspects of our work that are actually very similar. And yet so often we actually use the same words, but we use them to divide us rather than unite us. And so I was interested to explore how we might find ways of finding common ground rather than assuming that we are in opposition and trying to fight each other off in our work. Because journalists talk all the time about getting stories. They need stories to fill print media, they need stories to fill up the TV channels, whether that's the fictional stories of drama we talk about soap operas in England or of local stories. But also we use that language with the people who use our services, and very often they are told, come and tell us your story, and they complain that they have to tell their story lots and lots of times, and so we are constantly seeking ways that they can tell their stories once and the professionals act on it. So we're using the same language, and what we're trying to do is to help people explain what it is that makes our life real for us, and what makes life real for the people who use our services, and how we get that story over. And the job very often of social workers is helping the service users to express their story in a way that they can actually get help. And so we've talked a lot today about people who are marginalised in society, of people who maybe are in a position where society doesn't find it easy to hear their story. They are put in a position of finance or of travel or of disability whereby society does not want to hear the story. And so often it is our job as professionals to help them tell their story in a way that they can access the support and access the services that they need. So, but very often in that translation of the stories, our own story gets lost. And the story of what our job is gets lost, that's what. And so we've just done a major survey of our members, one of the key messages from our members to us is that they want our organisation to be their voice, because social workers feel lost. They feel that their stories can't be told. Issue here. We're just trying different ways to see if this can move on. If not, we will. So I was going to show you some headlines, but you've already seen some of the headlines from British newspapers of the way that social work is talked about. Headlines like 86-year-old dies when forgotten by social workers. Social workers fail to act on risks of toddler tortured to death. The threat of 5 years in jail for social workers who ignore abuse. A typical one is blood on their hands. And so social workers in the UK very often feel that whatever we do, the newspapers will be against us, they will be hostile to us, they will present us in a bad light. They blame us that we leave people at home to die, They blame us if we remove people because it's not safe in their homes. So we are saying whatever we do is a problem for us. And very often we have a fear of what we call a conspiracy of silence. A conspiracy of silence by the profession. We've talked about how complex our issues are, how difficult the stories are. It's not always easy to explain in 2 minutes. If I go on radio, my job is to be in television, to be on radio. Most often I am given 2 minutes on radio, whether that's local radio or national radio, and if I'm on television I will be lucky if I get 3, maybe 4 minutes. And that is a long time to get 4 minutes to explain a story and to answer questions and to be in a dialogue. So how skilled are we at being able to express really complicated things in language that people will understand in 3 or 4 minutes? Social workers are more used to having longer to be able to talk, to be able to explain, to be able to discuss. And so one of the real skills that we have to learn, and I've had to learn, is how to speak very briefly, how to speak very quickly, to explain what we're doing. Ignore it. Okay. Sorry. To show you some headlines. Good journalists do understand. Yes, it's complicated, but one of the things that really impressed me is getting to know some of the journalists on our main television and radio that are following the stories. They are specialist journalists, and they really do understand, and they are as frustrated as we are that they can't get the, thank you for trying, that they can't get the stories over to the public. So it really isn't that all journalists are bad and all social workers are good. There are many journalists who are really wanting to work with us and help us to tell our stories better. And they sit through the court cases, they hear the really tragic parts of the stories as they become public, and really are trying their best to get this over to help the public to understand. One of the real difficulties is that the media want to hear from social workers. Now, I'm a chief executive of our social work professional organisation, but even for us on behalf of our organisation, it is really hard to get social workers to talk. Now, why is that? Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's lack of experience, but very often it's because the employers say no. Even if they're not talking about their own job in their own employers, the employers are afraid. In our environment, the employers are told by insurance companies, no, you cannot let your staff speak out. But also the employers are afraid of legal action, and so they say no, social workers must not be able to speak out. So a large part of my job is working with employers about how they can help their social workers safely speak. And for me that is a major challenge, because until we can get social workers willing and able, with the support of their employers, to speak out on behalf of the profession, then I think it's very difficult for us to move forward. I can speak out, I am fortunate to be able to do so. Other people can speak out. I am a social worker, but on behalf of social workers, but we really do need to enable the frontline social workers to speak out. But it is hard. And it's hard because, as I say, employers don't like it, but also social workers themselves are afraid of speaking out, afraid of putting their work out into the public domain, and I don't blame them. I don't know if it's common elsewhere in Europe, but it is common within the United Kingdom for there to be internet hate sites naming social workers, giving their addresses, giving their photographs, giving their personal details with death threats, saying we will kill you for working with these children. We work constantly with Facebook, with internet sites to get these sites taken down. But who wouldn't be afraid? We get calls from social workers who have journalists camping outside their houses when there are difficult stories. And they are saying, I'm afraid for my own life, I'm afraid for my children and my family's life. What can I do to protect myself? And we provide them with advice. We provide people with a lot of advice when they first start training about how to make yourself safe when you use your own social media. So if I am on Facebook, I am on Twitter, how do I make myself safe and how do I protect my family? So I have a personal Facebook site, I have a personal Twitter account, but my personal Facebook site, I will never have my name on it. I will not allow my family to use my name in their, when they put things up on Facebook. Partly protect me, but even more to protect them. Because the case that went really very disastrously wrong for the social workers, the social media, or the press media, took photographs of the particular social worker at her daughter's wedding when she was happy and she was in a good place to be, and they put it up as this is how your social worker thinks about the fact that she killed these children. And so I have to protect my family as well as protect myself. Now, so I have to be defensive in that, whilst also finding a way of speaking out openly and publicly and passionately about how fantastic a job social workers are doing. And we need to find that support and balance so that we can protect ourselves, but we also need to have our public voice. And thank goodness the social media sites are getting better of working with us to take down the sites when messages when things go badly wrong, and trying to make social work a safer profession to be in, and one that we can be proud of and speak out openly about. But it is hard. It is hard, and it's certainly our job as an organisation to be looking out for when things get difficult and when things go wrong. So part of what we do is, in my organisation, I employ journalists. I employ journalists to do this work with us and for us, to help me, to help our members, to provide that advice to members, but also to speak to the journalist organisations, so the television and the radio, who they are talking to every day, to try and create the opportunities for us to be able to speak out and to be able to know the best way of getting our stories across. And we've produced a report. You may know the United Kingdom is 4 countries of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and our Northern Ireland group have produced, worked with the professional body of journalists to produce a guide about the reporting of child abuse cases. And that was a really interesting piece of work for the journalists, giving the journalist guidance, but also the social workers guidance about how to act when these cases do happen. So we've also produced guidance on the use of social media, and we also train members about how to speak out. So we provide training for social workers about how to use radio, how to use television, how to use local radio, local television. This is really, really important for us. It's not just the big national events, but getting those local messages across, and how to use them positively. So how people are used to using it for recruiting foster carers, for recruiting adopters, but how to speak out, not only on your own, but increasingly, of course, our service users are using the media themselves to speak out about their own position. And so how do we work with service users, either individually or as groups, to have joint messages about the services that are needed? And we're doing that more and more. And we're certainly challenging employers to say, please let your staff speak out. And there was a very good example a few months ago in a place called Coventry, where a young man had died, and it was a very tragic, very high-profile case. And the local authority, 1 year later, did a very good media event with local television and local radio, where the social worker is involved in working with that family before the death and after the death, and talked alongside the police, alongside the health staff, about what it had been like to work with that family. And it was a really, really inspirational opportunity for the profession to talk about how they responded in these cases. We need more opportunities like that, where not in the heat of the moment, not when the crisis is actually happening, but when we can reflect and learn together about what works well. That was a really good example of how we can do that. So how can we as social workers help people tell their stories? As I say, many service users are now using social media themselves to speak out about their own situations, and that is good, and we can help them do that individually and collectively. And we also need to, I think, to rethink what we mean in our profession by confidentiality. It is a real challenge to us, I think, that social media has changed things so much, that there is so much more information around. It's changed it in some ways in a difficult way, because now our social workers who are involved in protecting children will track those young people on Facebook. They will track them in Twitter, and that is used as part of the evidence that sometimes that is then used in court as to how this family is acting. So we use it, if you like, in that legal way, but we also need to use it constructively, openly, transparently, and as part of our good relationships with families and young people. So how do we feel that what we can talk about? Perhaps we need a new discussion about what is confidential. My own view is that all social workers need training in the media. It's not just people like me that is as part of my job have to speak in the media, but as I say, so many social workers now, to do their own job, need to be able to use local media. They need to be able to use local radio, but also certainly in the United Kingdom, there are many occasions when social workers are forced to speak to the media, whether they've had training or not. And so to how we are more proactive, how we take greater control of this. We need, when cases are getting difficult, we know that journalists will be there. And how far do we take it as our professional responsibility to talk with families about how are they going to respond to the journalists? How are they going to respond to people saying, we will pay you a large sum of money for telling your story? How are we going to explain what is their role, what is our role, and what role the media will play in court cases? So often we don't even have that discussion with people, but we need to be more proactive. We know this is going to happen, so why do we pretend that it's not? We need to have those discussions with people. And so for me, social workers need to understand that working with the media, whether it's through social media, whether it's through print, whether it's through TV, radio, whatever we're talking about, social workers need to see this as part of their job. All social workers need to see this as part of their role. And it's absolutely in line with our code of ethics, where we help people to speak out, to stop being marginalised, to get their voices heard. We can do it for ourselves, and we can do it on their behalf, but it's even better when we do it with people. So if we can help people to work with us, to help tell our stories together, then I think we will be a stronger profession, and we will have our work understood better by the public, and we will be understood better in trying to change some of the damaging headlines that we all suffer from at the moment. Thank you. Thank you.